Hello everybody, this is the weekly update from the South African Business Council here in Dubai. We're only a few weeks away from Expo and it's truly exciting as we do the final preparations for this mega event. Over the last few weeks, we've met with unbelievable CEOs and their executive teams getting insight in terms of how they're preparing for the Expo, but also how they're leveraging this mega event to ultimately reach a different market, maybe in Africa or a global market, and how they're leveraging the Expo as a corridor to different stakeholders to really shape the business of the future. Expo brings a lot of ideas and a lot of innovation together for 6 months. And this week, we had the privilege to meet with the COO of Mediclinic Middle East, Barry Bedford. Meeting with Barry, it was phenomenal, not only to speak about Expo, but to go into the detail of how Mediclinic, as one of the largest and most quality-driven hospital groups in the Middle East and in the world, responded to the pandemic. Barry shares some phenomenal insights in terms of how Mediclinic not only continued to have rapid response in COVID, but how they are applying themselves to delivering a safe Expo. Mediclinic in the Middle East is very known to the people of the UAE. They are known for quality, they're known for trust, but they're also known for that client experience. And it's truly a privilege to talk to Barry about their South African roots and how they're going to apply themselves to Expo going forward.
We are one.
Mr. Barry Bedford, thank you for making time to join us.
Thank you very much, Paul.
So we're going to talk about Expo and spend most of our time maybe getting your views on the exciting time that we're going into with the event. But maybe before that, a personal story from my side. I think over the last 2 years, as a South African, I was extremely proud to see how Mediclinic has just, leveled up the unbelievable response in the pandemic and how you have just rapidly, galvanized assets to respond, but also your leadership through that process, the people that you leveraged and motivated through this time. Maybe we start off by you just explaining to us how the last 2 years has been being part of Mediclinic and really the executive team that need to respond for the last 2 years to this pandemic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. I share your proudness and the excitement. As you know, Mediclinic, not only in South Africa, but also in the UAE, as well as in Switzerland. And I think it creates for us a huge opportunity to fast track a much more innovative and integrated care systems that need to be provided across the globe. I think the executive team extremely proactively managed not only COVID, but the way we need to transform healthcare within a COVID environment. More in the Middle East, it was absolutely a time for us to build bridges with the government and take hands even with our competitors and our regulators to make sure that Mediclinic plays a role within the UAE, both in Dubai and within the Abu Dhabi region. The regulator really work closely with the private healthcare to ensure that we deliver that type of care. But it was extremely exciting. But the staff and the doctors was the true heroes. And we cannot, as an organization, enough saying thank you to the nurses and the doctors and the administrative staff that truly took that walked that extra mile for our patients across the globe. So yes, I'm sure your excitement and your proudness ultimately how Mediclinic reacted to the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And still a South African company, but your Middle East business has done phenomenally well. Not only in COVID, but even before COVID, it would seem that Mediclinic has done so much work in their brand locally, but also in their quality and the levels of trust that they're building with the patients, the medical professionals, and ultimately, the way you do things. You've been innovating immensely. You've been using digital technology to elevate that client experience. I would assume that we're going to continue to see all these innovations and the significant investment into the region.
I even thinking more, both from a group point of view as well as from a Middle East point of view. We're seeing innovation hubs being set up to ensure that Mediclinic, not only in the Middle East, but over the globe, deals with all innovation that need to take the appropriate attention. You're absolutely right. Within Mediclinic Middle East, that difference, and we saw it traditionally even in Dubai. But I think what for me remains important is that If you walk into any Mediclinic facility, and specifically in the UAE, we are really proud to ultimately to work towards the ethical component of healthcare. If people walk into Mediclinic, it's the expertise that you can trust, but also the ethical component that creates a absolute confidence with the government as well as with the patients within the community. We're not going to deviate from our principles that we are extremely focused on patients and patient experience. And we want to make sure, whether it's a pandemic or not, that each and every patient enter into Mediclinic facilities, that they receive that absolute 10-star care and service that we promised them.
Yeah, so Barry, I mean, agreed. Partnerships is such a critical factor. So maybe if you can give us a sense, how much has Mediclinic leveraged partnerships to really deliver a healthy event at this mega scale?
Yeah, firstly, I think Mediclinic we are extremely proud to be part of the government task force to ensure that this Expo 2020 been delivered in a safe way. One of our flagship hospitals, Mediclinic Parkway Hospital in the southern part of Dubai, has also been assigned as one of the 5 primary hospitals for the Expo 2020. But I firstly want to salute our Crown Prince, Sheikh Hamdan, that decree that all participants and staff within the Expo site will be received vaccinations courtesy of the UAE government. But we started to make sure that all the people on site receive the appropriate vaccines, but the government, in consultation and partnership with the private healthcare, which Mediclinic plays a critical role, created a few scenarios that could have happened or could happen in the next 6 months. And I can assure you that Dubai, in partnership with the private healthcare, are absolutely ready for any circumstances that can happen within the next 6 months. I'm truly proud also that the partnership was not only between government and private healthcare, but between private healthcare institutions, taking hands ultimately to make this Expo 2020 a success. We meet currently weekly as all private healthcare providers for the Expo, making sure that we're taking hands as a successful implementation of this Expo. If you ask the government and the regulator, they will say that what makes this successful from a healthcare point of view is that we're taking partnership on all levels, and that we're going to make the UAE extremely proud with regards to the implementation of this Expo 2020.
I think my main takeaway is also, you touch on it, but it takes leadership. I mean, the partnerships is one key element, but you mentioned the unbelievable leadership that's being applied to really make this vision a reality. And I think it comes back to what you have started when you mentioned, Mediclinic's transformation and the way that Mediclinic has also leveraged this call to safety. It's pretty incredible. And maybe share also with us just your views on the leadership that you've seen in the UAE and how you see that as a archetype or as an example also for Mediclinic and how you operate the business here locally.
I think the leadership, starting with the ruler of Dubai, is that we want to ultimately collaborate and participate, because that sharing of knowledge and the sharing of diverse different backgrounds will ultimately create the innovative hub. And the innovative hub will enable different countries, 191 of them, to be able to prosper from a futuristic point of view.
Also, I think it's interesting because the UAE specifically, with all the regulation and how they're opening up for medical innovation and health tourism, is this something that Mediclinic with the UAE government is, symbiotically reviewing and understanding how you almost co-engage, co-create and co-invest?
On all levels, absolutely yes. Both on the component of medical tourism as well as innovation. If you look at the Expo that's going to start the 1st of October, the whole the creativity with regards to innovation and bringing people together ultimately to enhance ultimately a better life for humanity is absolutely aligned. What for me remains a absolute positive within the UAE is the absolute support of our government, our leadership, to work between the regulators, the private healthcare, to make sure that we achieve those objectives. Innovation as well as digitization, not only of healthcare, but of a lot of industries, remains a high priority for the leadership of the UAE.
Yeah, and now also with Expo a few weeks away, I'm sure that your work is not becoming less, right? Your team is galvanizing, you're getting ready for this mega event. Maybe share with us just your personal thoughts of the importance of the Expo for the country, but also for Mediclinic.
Yeah, I can really salute His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the leader of Dubai, with regards to his vision for Expo 2020. And that's ultimately to bring the world together, to share knowledge and to develop innovation and solutions for the better future. The whole Expo is divided into 3 themes with regards to creating opportunities, mobility, and sustainability, because we understand on how important sustainability will be for the world ultimately in the future. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid really in the forefront, the creativity, the innovation, the world cultures, to bring world cultures together ultimately, and for us to be able to learn from each other. And I'm personally extremely excited for the 1st of October and the opening of the Expo. And we as Mediclinic will also play a critical role, taking hands with our regulators to make sure that this is going to be the first Expo that's in a pandemic environment. And across the globe, people is flying into Dubai, and we need to make sure that each and every patient or each and every visitor coming into Dubai, with the support of the government, be safe, and making sure that they receive the safety measures that's internationally acceptable.
Yeah, and I think also, if I've seen some of the policies and regulations over the last few weeks as we prepare for Expo, it's almost, that balance between delivering the safest event, but also continuing to be true to the ethos and the DNA of the vision, which once again is that culmination of ideas coming together and really shaping a new sense of future. So the Expo is only 6 months. How do you see businesses capitalizing on Expo? If you need to reflect on Mediclinic's business, and you're today a global business, you've got exposure globally, how do you see the world coming to Dubai for that 6 months? How do you interpret that from a business and economic perspective?
I think over the next 6 months, more than 191 countries and businesses will participate in this Expo. And His Highness really put in the forefront that all the different countries must have a whole focus with regards to innovation on the one hand, but ultimately collaboration and bringing people together to share knowledge. And I think this year, within a pandemic environment, is really reinforcing people from different cultures, people from different nationalities, people with different views, to bring them together and be able to have that dialogue, to be able to create that new future that will be to the benefit of all of us.
Yeah. And I think also for the South Africans back home, this is a critical element, because I think over the last few weeks, last few months, we've had so much interest of South African businesses, very similar to Mediclinic, reviewing and understanding the viability of doing business in the UAE. And Expo becomes that catalyst event. They're seeing Expo as almost a corridor to world markets, but also into Africa. So I think it's quite exciting. And like you say, Mediclinic is going to play such a big role, because in the background, this all needs to happen in a safe manner. So maybe from a South African perspective, I know that you're going to be involved in so many different aspects of Expo, but I hope that it's still a bit of South African passion in Mediclinic. Is it safe to say?
There's always passion about South Africa. We remain a multinational company, having hospitals in the UAE, Switzerland, and South Africa. But I think we will always be passionate towards South Africa. But for that sake, we are passionate ultimately about healthcare and making sure that we deliver that healthcare that we're promising. I think if I more towards SAPCO, and I see the discussions that's happening with multi-choice, with the government, the DTI representatives, I'm extremely excited for the world also to see the South African pavilion, and how the South African pavilion, with the support of the government and multi-choice, will be able to transfer the knowledge that's also within a South African.
Yeah, and I think the key takeaway is that it takes partnerships, it takes significant teamwork with people at the center to really deliver it. But on that note, Barry, just a personal thank you, and I think from all of us, for the unbelievable support from Mediclinic, but also over the last 2 years, the unbelievable services that you guys have delivered. It was absolutely phenomenal. And like you say, you've been a partner not only to the people of the UAE, but at all levels, leadership level, and also what you do as an institution. Really, really big thank you. So thank
you. Thank you very much. And I want to say also thank you to SAPCO and the role that SAPCO played with bringing all the different organizations together. Again, if we go back to the leadership of the UAE, His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, We want different cultures to reunite, share their knowledge, innovate, and ultimately take it into the future.
Yeah, and
Thank you very
Expo,
much.
by the way. Thanks, Barry.
Absolutely.